Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the panel discussion session. We'll be discussing about the cloud computing for emerging technologies today. And for all the participants, welcome to the panel. And yeah, to all the audience, while we are going through the discussion, if you have any comments or any queries, please jot them down in the comment section. We'll be having a question and answer session at the end of the discussion. Thanks. So, as we just started, so this is about the cloud computing for emerging technologies. And in today's time and in the current scenario, we all are in a virtual session, thanks to technology that it has enabled us to meet in a virtual manner. Otherwise this wouldn't have been possible. But what we are experiencing today is not just something that came up recently, but it's a push through many years to have the emerging technologies stack on. So let me welcome the panel today for the discussion. We have Mr. Shrikant Navelkar, who is the director at Clover Infotech. Welcome, Shrikant.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I've been working in Clover Infotech head office in Mumbai for the last 25 years, and very actively now working on the cloud platform. And I worked with the customers on the various roles, right, from delivery to sales to business development. Thank you.
Thanks, Shrikant. So at least our audience know that we'll be hearing some real-time and actual use cases and the actual purpose of cloud. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks, Shrikant. Welcome, Mr. Ranganath Jagannath, who is the director at Agora, director for growth, India and SAARC aspect. So,
Thank you, Paresh.
yeah, Ranganath, you want to introduce about
Yeah, sure.
yours?
Thank you. Like you already briefly mentioned, I take care of growth here for Agora in India and surrounding countries. That's on the professional side. My personal side is probably more interesting, which is because I'm a marathoner and I'm a sports enthusiast. Play various sports and other things, but marathoning is my passion. So that keeps me motivated on a personal side. So excited to be here, part of the Cloud Summit today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Rangnath. The aspect of keeping us motivated during these times is very much needed. And as you mentioned, you are sports enthusiast, so at least we should have something which keeps us motivated. Thanks for that tip. Then we have Mr. Gaurav Jain, who is the VP for Technologies at IKS Health. Welcome, Gaurav.
Hi, Paresh. Thank you. Glad to be here. As Ranga said, it's a pleasure to be here as well. I'm Gaurav Jain. I'm responsible for tech dev and infrastructure globally at IKS Health. We're a US healthcare focused organization, primarily focused on physician enablement. Solving cutting edge problems using, complex problems using cutting edge technologies for the healthcare delivery system. So glad to share our thoughts and what we're doing here for solving some of these challenging problems in the current times.
Yeah, and we very much need these technologies enable us whenever the vaccine is ready to help us, crunch the data and create a efficient plan for reaching it to all the people. Thanks, Gaurav. Then we have Mr. Siva Perubotla, sorry. So he is the global practice head at for digital infrastructure at Brillo. So welcome, Shiva.
All right, thank you. Morning, everyone. I think excited to be here. Been with the industry past 25 years. In Brillo right now, heading the cloud infrastructure practice globally, helping our customers to embark on their cloud journey. And then glad to be here in this elite forum.
Yeah, thanks, Shiva. Then we have Mr. Ravi Chamria, who is co-founder and CEO at Zeeve. Welcome, Ravi.
Hi everyone. So my name is Ravi, and I'm the co-founder of Zeeve. Zeeve is a blockchain as a service platform that helps automate the complete DevOps for blockchain blockchain protocols on pretty much all the most popular cloud infrastructure providers as well as on-premise.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi, for the introduction. So, as audience could hear and see, like we have varied representatives or heads from different industries, and the common point in in the session today is about cloud computing and emerging technologies. So even though we are diversified in the industry, we are connected together by the technology. So that's what we are about to discuss here: the use cases and the solutions, and when to use what. So let's begin with Mr. Shrikant Navelkar. So Shrikant, as organizations evolve and decisions are taken on the basis of data, the data takes a center stage. Now, while cloud computing provides a way to store and crunch huge amount of data, um, there are many concerns around the security aspects of it. So we would like to know how Clover Infotech recommends to maintain the security while using cloud computing, and how can SMEs in today's time leverage or embrace the digitalization and move to next step.
Yeah, thanks, Paresh. Let me answer the first point, and let me discuss some of the things what we have seen in the market today. While talking to customer, I strongly believe that companies need to consider security in a completely holistic way. Because what is going to happen now is that you will find rarely there will be some companies who will be 100% on cloud or maybe on single vendor. Over the period of time, you will find companies adopting one or two cloud vendors, and they still will have some of their applications running on premise. So what I'm trying to say that ultimately they will have a hybrid environment. Now this puts a very different focus on security. So we must understand that what kind of scenario we are entering into it. Second is that what we have to believe, and what we have been talking to our customers for many years, is that data security or the cloud security is not a part of a technology or a particular division or particular person. We strongly believe that security should be considered as a part of operations and not as a part of technology or part of the IT security perspective. Because only when we consider this as a part of operations, we will start thinking about it day to day. We will have enough investment on the security, because whether it is a small company, mid-sized company, or large company, security is extremely important. It's not just going to affect your business negatively, but it's a great distraction for the companies whenever there is a security, lapse into this. So I strongly believe that security should be considered as a part of the company's day-to-day operation and not as a one isolated project as such. Third thing, what we have to remember is that we have to consider three different aspects. Even if we get into the cloud, we have to see that how the data has been created at the source. A lot of this data has been created for our company outside our company, and how that data is coming in. Second thing, we have to see that how the data movement is going to happen. Now, because of pandemic, a lot of workforce has gone remote. So there's a lot of to and fro data from your head office or from your corporate office to the remote workers, maybe via cloud or outside cloud. But there's a lot of data movement. And the third aspect is that how data is going to get consumed. Last 10 to 15 years, or post smart phones, data has been now consumed digitally and not on the paper. Now, when the data is consumed digitally, it actually gives a very different aspect of the security, because you don't have a control on what device the individual is going to use. So when you consider data security in this environment, whether it is cloud or not cloud, you have to consider all three aspects: how the data is created, how the data is moved, and how the data is consumed. Next aspect is that by just moving to the cloud or by just adopting cloud, you're not solving the security problem. Because yes, cloud vendors, whether it's the infrastructure cloud vendors like AWS, or maybe the software cloud vendors like Salesforce, or maybe Microsoft and Oracle, who are providing both the things, yes, it is a responsibility to a certain extent on them to provide the secure infrastructure and secured application. But what we have to remember that application infrastructure is one thing, and data is another thing. And data is in our control, and data is our own. So if you don't have a holistic view to the data security, whichever cloud vendor you select and whatever technology the cloud vendors are providing to you, or even the kind of SLAs you're signing with them, if you don't consider data security of your own data holistically, cloud is not going to help into this. And I'll give an example of this. Many times, customers consider cloud to move their production application environment. So they move their production application environment to the cloud. Now, what had happened? Most of these applications were developed, with the on-premise deployment, in mind. So when we thought about security of this application from the on-premise perspective, only when we decided to move it to the cloud, we have to think about how security works in cloud native environment. Second important aspect is that the non-production application environments, like your development environment and your test environment, many times we don't pay attention to these environments, and these environments can act as a Trojan horse, from the security perspective for your production environment. Many times the data breach happens from there, and if you don't do enough housekeeping, because many companies are implementing their application through third party. Now, if you don't maintain it properly, or I have seen many cases where even post implementation, the user logins are still lying over there. The test data is still lying over there. Now, if you don't pay enough attention to that, you're actually creating a lot of problems for the security, even if it is on a cloud perspective. And the most important, aspect of is that there is a continuous monitoring of data. You need to, keep on considering it, because no cloud vendor is going to take a responsibility of your own data. And I'll give an example of this again. Imagine companies using Salesforce. Salesforce is supposed to provide the security of the application, security of the instance. But what happens when one of your employees download huge amount of CRM data before just leaving the company? That's not what Salesforce is going to control. That's your policy. That's your monitoring. That's your use of technology to avoid that. So by just moving to the cloud, you're not solving the security problem at all. Security has to be ingrained. It has to be considered as operations, and then you have to consider as a holistic. This is what I've seen and talking to customers, while working with them.
So thanks, Shrikant, for giving a holistic view about the security. So I think the tip for the day is security should be part of operations and not just dependent on the technology. Thanks for
Sure.
that. So I have, yeah. So for Mr. Ranganath, I would just like to know, since he works with Agora, like Agora solves the use case of connecting people. Now, in the current pandemic, we see that it has stimulated and hastened the adoption of virtual engagement platforms. Even we are virtually connecting to the session now. So, as more and more groups are onboarded on virtual presence and the limitations of the infrastructure around it,
Did we lose Paresh, or is it only
No,
me?
no.
No,
I think we
I
lost him.
think we lost,
did lose Suresh, yeah.
we lost Presh.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ranga, were you able to hear
Hey,
me
Paresh, you're back.
or I was just disconnected?
Not the full
Okay.
question, but last
Okay.
few a minute or two we lost
Okay.
you.
Sorry for that. This is just about the question I was about to ask you, right? We are connected on a virtual platform, and Agora provides these virtual engagement platforms, but we see that there are many limitations, either in the infrastructure or the network. Now there is also a demand for real-time engagement. It puts a pressure on providers like you for innovative solutions. So how do
Right.
Agora solve this demanding use case with the technology as tool?
Um, yeah, actually, it was just coincidence that the platform kind of froze just as you were asking me that question. So, nice segue into my answer, anyways. So, one of the things that Agora does, or actually, there are 4 or 5 different things that Agora does differently. Uh, I'll start by naming a few of them. The first thing that we do is that we have our own virtual overlay or network on top of the public internet. So once something enters the Agora network, then it is our responsibility to kind of take care of it till it exits our network. So we are not so much dependent on the public internet once the data enters our network. So we have an intelligent network that we have built on top of the public internet, and this spans across geographies, it spans across data centers worldwide. So that's one. The second thing is that we also make it very seamless and accessible across platforms, because you don't know from which platform a user might be accessing. Could be from a phone, could be from a laptop, a desktop, could be some legacy systems. So we've taken care of handling this cross platform interoperability, so to say. So that's number two. The third thing that we have done is we have built the platform from day one for it to be hyper scalable. And just to give you a sense of what scale we are talking about roughly about 40 billion minutes of live voice and video per month. So it's a billion spelt with a B, not with an M. So we are hyper scalable in that sense. So the platform is hyper scalable. The other thing that we have done is we have not bundled everything that is required into one package. So if somebody wants just voice, we allow them to use just the voice part of the technology. If somebody wants video, then they just use video. Somebody wants to mix, they can mix the two or more features. So that's another thing that we have broken it down into smaller bits and pieces. And last but not the least is the reliability. So our SLAs are extremely competitive. It's almost, I think, 99.95%, if I'm not wrong. And since the time that I have been at Agora, I don't remember Agora going down even once. That's just the scale at which we operate, and that's how we have built the infrastructure. So these 4 or 5 different things is how we are able to manage the inflow or influx of demand that we are seeing, especially in the last 6 or 7 months since the pandemic has broken out. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. So, especially for enthusiasts or people who are listening, so when they think about cloud, it's always about huge data or crunching huge data or managing and processing that. And you gave an idea about having a virtual overlay. So that is something that could be taken out, like when they are trying to
Absolutely.
design or architect. Yeah, and
Sure.
about the scalable, and you also provided pointers on the data, like 40 billion minutes of live voice and video per month. So that's, yeah,
That's correct.
so that's the scalability that could be achieved by cloud. Okay, thanks, Rangnath,
Sure.
for that insight. um, so now moving back to the health sector, so Mr. Gaurav Jain, Like if we see the current priorities, they are set on health, and we also see that there is limited availability of medical care, uh, which puts a pressure on the infrastructure, medical infrastructure. Now it becomes utmost important to have efficient utilization of existing facilities and provide accurate outcomes, so that we could ease up the bandwidth for providers and the health system. So we would like to know how IKS Health utilizes emerging technologies to solve this specific problem.
Sure, Paresh. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, I'm able to
All
hear
right.
you. Okay.
Great. So I think let me start with Paresh as to what does IKSL do, right? Because I'm not sure if it's very clear on what we do, right? So IKSL, we are basically a physician enablement platform, right? For healthcare systems. Now, what does that mean, right? So we basically free up physicians from activities that don't belong at the clinic or at the health system or for the physician themselves, allowing them and their entire support system to focus on providing care, which is what they really are good at, right? So, what? How do we do that? And you asked a question of how do we use emerging technologies on the cloud, right, in order to free physicians up to be able to see more patients, right? So one of the biggest challenge for physicians, uh, is at least in the US, it's very challenging. Is the whole documentation process for the patient interaction that they have. For every patient interaction that they do, they have to document a whole lot for them to be appropriately compensated, of insurance to reimburse the amount, right? And remember that while it's very important to create the access opportunity and physicians to see more patients, but if they don't get compensated, of the health systems don't get paid for it, they can't survive, right? So that's where IKS Health comes in, and that's where we use technology in order to enable a lot of that, right? So one of the things that we use pretty heavily in the cloud are automatic speech recognition engines, right? One of the things that as a patient and a physician are talking, we basically deploy cloud-based ASR technology to create, and then on top of that, AI and ML to basically go ahead and build the patient charts. So that it frees up time for the physician, and the physician does not have to do that activity anymore. And that gives them, on an average, close to about an hour, hour and a half, maybe sometimes even 2 hours a day that frees up for them to see more patients, and frees up their time to accommodate the higher patient load today, especially for your primary care physicians. As that has expanded, right? Similarly, one of the other things that the entire system gets really sort of loaded with is there's still even though with the digitization, etc., there's a lot of paperwork that comes in, a lot of reporting, lab reports, etc., that come on paper. So again, we use cloud-based OCR technologies to crunch this and basically be able to sort this and extract the critical information for the physician, and then provide it to the physician at the point of care when they need it, right? So that they're not looking through mounds and large volume of paper and documents and data in order to find this important information, right? These are two core sets that I can talk about, which truly help the physician and their support system at the end of it, right? Now, other than that, one of the other things that we use pretty heavily is the whole processing power of the cloud. Remember, healthcare is comes up, it's pretty complex and also generates tons and tons of data, and we use this, we use cloud and all of the technologies, whether you talk about containers and ability to spin up, GPUs at a click of a button, etc., to basically be able to crunch this data and run algorithms and run logics, etc., to be able to provide the right intelligence at the right point of time for the physicians and their support staff and the health system, right? And then ultimately use this for to get them to make sure that they are getting reimbursed from the insurance companies, such that they're not getting crunched financially, where they can't see patients anymore. So all of that is how we enable our physicians and health systems to be able to get provide more access to the patients in the current times, and even in other times as well. I hope
Yep.
that helps.
Sure.
Paresh.
Yep, Gaurav, that definitely gave an insight. And also in the current scenarios, we are seeing AI and ML emerging for increasing the accuracy in the diagnosis. We have recently been hearing articles about, diagnosing COVID by just mere voice samples and so on. But they are still emerging. And so thanks for the insight, Gaurav. Now, when
Thanks.
we talk about yep. When we talk about Brillo, so Brillo leverages the emerging technologies for its innovative solutions. So what it does is it provides expert support in the emerging technologies ecosystem, and it provides market related solutions and enhances customer experiences. So whenever we are starting with cloud computing or have been using it for a while, we already need that expert support what Brillo provides. So how does Brillo achieve this with the technology itself as a tool? So Mr. Siva,
Yeah. So thank you for that, Paresh. Right. So we help actually our customers to how do they embark on their cloud journey. I think like I think some of the examples that Ranganath and then Gaurav have taken, comes into actual, when you implement. Actually, we are here actually to help these kind of customers to implement those technologies. Even before going there, right? I just want to touch upon what are those emerging trends, which actually, cloud computing, accelerating the whole business use cases that we've been talking about so far, like Gaurav's and Agora's of the world, right? So I'll start with probably about 6, 7 trends, right? To fundamentally, to start with your serverless computing, and then containerization, and then microservices, which is a huge advantage that cloud computing brings in, right? Basically, on demand, you can spin up a compute power, right? That is a fundamental benefit of this, right? Apart from that, you can segment your applications into the chunks, actually, right? Rather than, and then call through the functions and on demand, go and then do a specific job, rather than looking at an entire application running on the cloud, right? So that is another service that it will provide. And then you can run your entire application as a container, like, application in a box kind of a stuff, right? So but if you were to leverage all these features, right, you got to ensure that your applications, which are predominantly legacy or on-premise, to ensure that they are customized or re-engineered or modernized, actually, to ensure that it can take all the features that are provided as part of the cloud computing, right? That is one of the aspects that is a basic or foundational trend, actually, that cloud compute brings in, right? See, other one, actually, the big thing, right, which is data, right? Like Gaurav was talking, healthcare companies actually brings in, tons of data, right? It may be structured, unstructured, semi-structured, right? You got to store this data. Not only storing, actually, you should be able to process this data in a jiffy, right? So, and also make some kind of a meaningful insights out of this, right? So it all requires not only putting the data into the cloud, right? These cloud solutions offer not only for healthcare, the financial services, or retail, consumer goods, or manufacturing, a particular IoT kind of a segment. So data plays it's like it's like a theme that right now everybody says data is new oil, right? So that
Right.
that's how it's been talked on, right? So this so cloud computing provides lots of features and services, flexibility to one. Either it requires a high performance compute on demand to be provisioned, right? Where you cannot do it in a normal data centers where cloud computing that provides. There is another trend, right? But having said that, you have all this data. What do you do with this data, right? That is another trend actually, which is nothing but where your artificial intelligence and machine learning actually comes into the picture, right? So basically what it does, you run some bunch of analytics on this, where number one, as a fundamental premise, a human being actually can take meaningful insights of this data and then make some kind of an intelligent decisions, actually can bring in some kind of a predictability in decision making, whatever you're doing, right? That is a fundamental aspect. But if you move a step ahead, you can build all these machine learning algorithms and then AI, right, by leveraging data trends, and then taking all this data and then making automate many of these aspects of what humans are doing at this point of time, the jobs or functions at various enterprises. Like, Gaurav rightly said, I don't think I need to repeat that, but isn't it an awesome thing where a physician per day, 2 hours of time, the physician gets to look at more and more patients to provide a healthcare, rather than looking at a bunch of documents and going through this, right? So that is a huge advantage that cloud computing brings. That is another trend, right? So, but having said that, the other one is on the blockchain, another much more emerging trend that we're looking. What does blockchain actually brings onto the table, right? One is it makes everything as a decentralized. Decentralized is one other aspect, and then it also brings immutability to the infrastructure, and then the whole process and everything, right? And the third one is the whole automation, and fourth one is transparency, actually, right? So this is applicable for almost all enterprises. So cloud computing offers tons of ways actually, and then brings in services ready-made where enterprises can adapt, right? So having said that, everything like the first point that we talked about on the security, right? Many of the enterprises are talking about the security first as a mindset, right? See, it's not about putting your data or an app or infrastructure onto the cloud. It's also important to bring in security at various layers, right? Security, you have a data security, app security, cloud foundation, and then infrastructure security, right? On top of it, each and every industry has its own compliance and governance requirements, right? Be it healthcare, be it financial services, be it energy utilities, right? All these enterprises have their own governance and then compliance requirements where one has to meet these requirements, right? So that makes security much more relevant in this world. Particularly, you might have seen actually a lot of incidents related to security as well, right? So this is something actually emerging across the enterprises and customers, right? So having said that, multi-cloud is another one actually coming, right? Like a lot of enterprises started going with one of the hyperscalers in the sense, it's AWS or Azure or GCP, you call them as hyperscalers, right? When they started their cloud journey, right, they started with one of the hyperscalers, right? Now everybody, each of these hyperscalers brings in some unique capabilities among with them, and customers are adapting multi-cloud kind of a methodology, which makes all these enterprises to ensure that how do you run applications seamlessly on multiple clouds, how do you ensure that your CI/CD development methods, and then how do you integrate everything multiple kinds in a seamless manner, which brings in a lot of it DevOps kind of a framework, right? In uniform way, right? So on top of it, and then while you move into the cloud, the other trend is how do you ensure that you consume your cloud in an optimal way, right? Blink of an eye, actually your bill can be more than a budgeted amount that you have, right? So it's important to have your FinOps under control. Basically, that is a concept actually most of the organizations are actually leveraging multiple service providers to ensure that their costs of cloud consumption is in check, right? So, and then the other one that we're talking about, the final one probably I'll talk about, is workspace as a service, right? Particularly with the COVID, triggered this huge, surge in terms of this kind of a demand, where it's not about taking your desktop at home, right? You don't need to have any physical device with you, as long as you have a personal tablet or a device, anything that you have. Just launch your workspace anywhere, and then you can work from anywhere, right? It's not about the compute power of desktop or anything. It's also about your collaboration services along with, right? Now it's the Teams or any other collaboration services. So this is another trend that is going. So having said that, there are multiple things that I can go on trends perspective. But having said that, this is where Brillo brings in the expertise of the domain and industry knowledge, and then technology expertise, enterprise architecture expertise, and then implementation and migration, and then operations expertise along with us. That's how actually we help enterprise customers to ensure that they take all this technology to the cloud.
Yep. Thanks, Siva. I think that was a summary of the whole cloud, or of all the aspects related to the cloud. Thanks for giving that insight. Since you touched upon the blockchain, about decentralization, immutability, and transparency, now the blockchain, it's very easy as a terminology, but managing a blockchain network would be challenging. And I think that's where Mr. Ravi Chamria chips in, because Zeeve provides a platform to allow businesses to set up the blockchain ecosystem. So we are interested to know how cloud is being leveraged in that ecosystem. Mr. Ravi?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so today, as Shiva also rightly mentioned, that one of the area which is very important in the cloud transformation is the role of blockchain. And blockchain both strengthen the cloud infrastructure as well as utilize the cloud infrastructure for some of its features, whether it be immutability, whether it be peer-to-peer decentralized kind of environment. But if we talk about blockchain deployment, so the whole DevOps of the blockchain networks and nodes is quite different from the traditional application stack. And that's where, today, to take an example, if you want to set up a Hyperledger Fabric network, typically 1 or 2 DevOps guy will take 3 to 4 weeks to set up a network of 5 to 7 or 10 nodes. And that's where we identify that, it's very challenging. There is no standardization as far as how the protocols, how the decentralized application should be set up on a cloud environment. Plus, there has been continuous upgrades happening as the technology is still maturing. And apart from that, there's not much expertise in the market to manage the DevOps of blockchain applications. And that's where we plan on automating the whole DevOps of blockchain. Multiple protocols, multiple cloud environments, and one of the area which is is a requirement for blockchain is that most of the blockchain consortiums are heterogeneous in nature. So for the same blockchain network, some nodes may be on Azure, some may be on AWS, some may be on-premise. So that kind of heterogeneous network deployment again adds to the complexity of managing the DevOps for blockchain. And so from that perspective, we build the whole platform called Zeeve, which automates the initial DevOps piece by integrating the CI/CD pipelines, Git integration, etc. And at the same time, giving one-click deployment for various protocols on cloud of your choice. And so that was just the start of it. We launched the platform about a year back, and post that we realized that deployment doesn't solve all the problems. You need to have different sets of services and features that will complete the picture. So one of the major pieces is the security and the compliances. Today, security in a centralized environment and security in a decentralized environment is completely different. One of the shortcut which today some of the banking customers they have been taking is just to set up everything on their private cloud to cut down the hassles of it. But if you go into a public cloud kind of environment, of course, how to manage security on a decentralized network becomes very important. So there are a couple of things that we have done, like we have integrated the decentralized storage. So there are various decentralized storage networks like Storage or CR and IPFS. So we have given so that the whole storage of files, documents, etc. can be decentralized. And during the execution, one of the main area that we are working with Intel is how to exploit SGX, which is a memory enclave on the system. How to utilize that to provide hardware-based security for various execution in the blockchain environment. So and now we are planning to offer this simply as a service where somebody can consume it. Traditionally, it started with the offline desktop systems, but now it has been migrated to cloud, and the whole secure framework is getting built around it. The other thing that is the the hassles of managing or optimizing the network. So blockchain networks have been very expensive, and then the cost factor and the lack of expertise factor, which again further adds to the cost. That is a huge impediment today for blockchain adoption. So that is another area that we are focusing as a service, so that how the cost can be brought down, how highly optimized networks, highly performant nodes can be set up with minimal of cost and optimizing the cost. Plus a dashboard where one can see how the cost can be further put down. So that's another area, so that more and more people actually get into blockchain deployments. So that's largely some of the things I wanted to cover.
Yep. Thanks, Ravi, for giving that insight into this complex ecosystem. So by that, we have our panelists providing their insights on the various aspects about cloud. Now, we have a shortage of time. However, I see just a couple of questions. So one was related to how can we implement blockchain in multi-cloud for secure transactions? I think Ravi provided some pointers towards that.
Right. So so like each node can be hosted on a different environment, and then through peer-to-peer transactions, those nodes are connected in a network. Through Zeeve, we have automated this process so that you don't need to actually set up instantiate a new instance and then set up on that. So the whole setting up or deploying a node on a cloud environment to migrating a node to another cloud environment is just a single click. So that's the kind of scenario that we have automated. So now you can set up a network with each node belonging to a different cloud environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. So just since we are just about time, and I would like to thank all the panelists for giving their precious time, and all the audience for giving us a chance to provide you insights on this. So thanks to all the panel members. I'm sure there would be other questions around this, but for that the audience can provide the comments on our site, and you try to reach back. Thanks, everyone.
And a huge round
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Paresh also.
Thank you.
Thanks.